but don't forget in the process to take care of the basic things. We could talk a lot longer about that. We're not going to. See, he says they're blind guides. He said you take a real fine sieve, you know, pour it out. Here comes a gnat. Aha, we got the gnat. You got rid of the gnat. All right. He said, and you swallow camels. I suppose double-humped camels with ease. We make big things of small issues. At the time that the communists took over in Russia, the leaders of their great national church were debating what kind of surplices the priest should wear in performing the religious services of that great church. With that kind of blindness to the spiritual needs of people, it's no wonder that the communists were able to say that religion is the opiate of the people. He talks here about the inside and outside the cup. He said, you're very careful to observe the external things, but inside the cup you haven't cleaned it yet. He said, you're like a whitewashed tomb. We beautify the tomb. Oh, it's a beautiful tomb. And we keep it all clean on the outside. But you can't avoid the fact that inside the tomb, after all, there is death. There is putrefaction. There are the dead men's bones. And then he said, you say, if we had been here when our forefathers lived, we would not have killed the prophets. Oh, you admit that you are their children, do you? He said, you're like your parents, whether you think so or not. Verse 31 down through verse 36, please.
Thus you witness against yourselves that you are the sons of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your fathers. You serpents, you brood of vipers, how are you to escape being sentenced to hell? Therefore I send you prophets and wise men and scribes, some of whom you will kill and crucify, and some you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from town to town, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of innocent Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Truly I say to you, all this will come upon this generation.
The term, the definition of generation, is a problem in another number of texts. Some places it means that generation, that 30, 35 years. Others it means that bloodline, that is, that particular nation. Others refers to a coming generation which has some starting point, such as the putting forth of new leaves by the fig tree that we mentioned in a previous telecast. Jesus in this point, I think, is talking about the particular generation in which he was speaking. Before his hearers died, all of this judgment will come upon them, which came to pass at the fall of Jerusalem in AD 68, 69, and 70, when Titus, the general working for his father, the Caesar, the Roman Emperor, Vespasian, took Jerusalem. And here Jesus, instead of exalting over their misfortunes, which are recorded for us in Josephus, the wars of the Jews, he laments over Jerusalem. It's no pleasure to Jesus to predict anything harsh about his people, being a Jew himself, nor about the capital of his country, Jerusalem. Let's look at 37 through 39.
O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, killing the prophets and stoning those who are sent to you, how often would I have gathered your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is forsaken and desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, Blessed be he who comes in the name of the Lord.
And again, we would say to our Jewish Israeli friends, I have no desire to offend anyone. As you take the liberty of interpreting scriptures from your understanding, I am to do the same. I would hold out hope here, however, because Jesus said He's coming again, and that day men shall say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." We come here to a passage on how big a gift is. It's an interesting thing that in the temple area, that they never dreamed of putting the women in just the men's area. They put it out in the area, the court of the Gentiles, the court of the women, where women could get there to give their money. Very few organizations have been able to survive without the financial aid of the women who worshiped in that organization. And so we have Jesus observing what is given. Furthermore, I would have you notice that He observes how much is given. And I'm not trying this morning, we're not driving for funds, we're not trying to raise money for anything, although we use it in our various Christian enterprises, from colleges on down to churches and missionary activities. But I would simply say to you that Jesus knows how much is being given by each one. Will you read Mark 12, 41 to 44, please?
And He sat down opposite the treasury and watched the multitude putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums, and a poor widow came and put in 2 copper coins, which make a penny. And He called His disciples to Him, and said to them, "Truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, her whole living."
And we are talking about it today, after all these years in between. This woman had no idea 1900 plus years ago that when she slipped up to this treasury box in the court of the women and put in her 2 little coins, that she would be observed by Jesus, that it would get into a New Testament which was not yet written, that it would be printed, which was unknown in her day, and that right now in this studio, that we would be reading to you about this obscure gift of less than 2 cents 1900 plus years back. But so it's come to pass. So it's come to pass. And Jesus said, because He judges by how much you leave for yourself, not how much you give. She's given more than they all. Some Greeks come to see Jesus now, and we turn to John chapter 12, and we begin in verse 20, and we're going to read down through verse 23 at the moment.
Now among those who went up to worship at the feast were some Greeks. So these came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and said to him, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." Philip went and told Andrew. Andrew went with Philip, and they told Jesus. And Jesus answered them, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified."
These Greeks, that is these Gentiles, wanted to see Jesus, and they approached Him through His disciples. When Jesus heard that non-Jews, that the Gentile world was beginning to seek Him, He said, "The hour must come then that I must be glorified, that I may become the seed for the entire world." Then He states a principle in verses 24 and 25.
"Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit.